I know no matter what, like that lady loves me
Yeah.
to the core. So every night I would go to bed and I would just cry for my mom, and knowing that like, but I had to, she was mad at me and I was mad at her, and I had to stay in this thing. And then when I finally wrote her the letter and was like, hey mom, I know that you're mad at me, but I want you to know that like I love you and I'm about to have your granddaughter.
Welcome back to another episode of Tales from the Grip. It's like the moment to get nervous. Freeze up.
We're on.
That's why I like how some podcasters, they just start talking, but people need an introduction, I feel.
Yeah.
And especially with this, with what we're doing here on this podcast. And Erica, was somebody that was younger, you know, we're close to that, I think, same age. When I came into the rooms and started to get clean. So you were definitely a big inspiration, you know, when I got here, to see people like you and, you know, Matt and stuff like that were like kind of closer to my age and were like doing the deal. And so, yeah. And then you was also best friends with like one of my exes.
Yep.
You know, but we never had like, you know, this crazy good relationship or anything like that, but it's definitely somebody that I always watch, you know. And I really appreciate you coming on the podcast, and you've done well in your life. You've done great for yourself, and I'm sure that you're probably going to tell us about some of that whenever you share your story. So I give you Erica.
Oh, just like that, huh?
Just like that. just
like
right
that.
on in.
You're on. Thanks for having me. Thanks for asking me. Yeah, I'm definitely like nervous. But it's good because it's been a while since I've done anything like this, and it's different too. And I like the idea that it's different. I was talking to somebody earlier, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna go do, you know, what Brian's little podcast or whatever." And it's like, so it'll be fun. And
to say, I was like nervous asking you.
Yeah,
I was, because it's you know, you don't know how people feel about things, so I was like, I wonder if I should do it. Because, like, in my mind, I was like, I'd love to have her on, you know, but some people, I totally respect it. The main thing is, like, I know people with their careers and stuff in life, sometimes, you know, I had asked somebody else in the rooms that is a nurse, and I asked them, and they were like, and I was like, I get it. Like, you don't need to, like, explain or feel bad. I, like, totally understand, because, you know, is an understandable, you know, understandable thing. So, but yeah. So,
well, lucky enough for me, like, in my professionalism, there's a lot of where I came from in that world. You know what I mean? And everybody that I work with, I mean, most of them, like, my recovery has never been a secret. You know, since I got clean, since I started in the mortgage world, like, it's never been a secret, because a lot of those people that are actually still in my work life today saw me when I got clean, because I got clean, and 4 months later, I got thrown into a mortgage job. And then, you know, and I was crazy, right? I was 4 months clean. I was crazy, and I was crazy for a long time. And like, it's almost like I had a justification for my crazy, because like, I'm in recovery and I'm just trying to learn life, you know, and like something I hadn't been a part of for so long. So
I'm hanging on by a thread here.
Erica, why are you crying? Well, Erica cries all the time, but there's something happening in my life. And so yeah, it's never that's never been something that I've ever held back. I'm letting people know that I'm in recovery, because I'm proud of my recovery. I'm proud of where I've come from and where I am today. So, you know, people are like, you don't drink. And I'm like, because mortgage brokers drink,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like
Most everybody drinks.
yeah, most everybody drinks.
Yeah.
And like in this world, like, that's what you do. You gather and you drink. And you take your borrowers out for a drink, dinner or whatever. And so yeah, I mean, but it's worked well, so it's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine. I don't care who knows.
Awesome.
I don't care who knows. If you knew me before, you're glad that I'm here.
Bravo.
Exactly.
This is my grandmother.
Keep doing whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
Exactly. Don't stop.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So what's your clean date?
October 6th, 2006.
October 6th, 2006. Wow.
Yeah.
You can't forget that one.
No.
For multiple reasons.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Yeah. For multiple reasons. So yeah, 16 years. It's crazy.
Yeah. That's why it's so significant. It is it's pretty amazing when you come in new, right? Because mine was December 27th of 2007. So you had a little over a year. But in my eyes, as somebody coming in brand new, it's like, wow, that is a lot of time.
That's a lot of time.
Yeah, it's a lot of time.
It's a lot of time. I remember when you came in. I remember like the early years, Brian, and looking back and how we've all changed, like hopefully, we stay and we change and we have that opportunity to get better and do life together, and buy houses and have babies and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The evolution of an addict, right?
Yeah. Right. Right.
If you do the deal, it is pretty significant how much your life changes, in these rooms. You can half-ass it and you can hang around, because we all know people that have done that. But like if you take it serious and you're doing the deal, inside and outside the rooms, your evolution as a person will change dramatically, And so what was life like for you growing up?
Life for me growing up was, looking back on it, was pretty good, but in the moment, I was, the black sheep of the family, and, I never felt like I fit in at home or anywhere else, and, but my parent, I had good parents, parents that cared about me and took care of me and my brother, and worked hard to give us everything we could ever want. Like, I always say that I was pretty spoiled growing up, but I didn't know that at the time. You know what I mean? Like my parents really did work hard. Like I didn't, when I say spoiled, I mean spoiled in a way of like, I didn't really want for anything. You know what I mean? It's not like I had above and beyond what everybody else had. That wasn't my life, but I did have everything that I ever could have wanted, and my parents made sure that they did that for me, and my brother. But of course at the time, like I didn't see it like that. I saw it like everybody else had bigger, everybody else had better. I was never, all of the things when we come in here, like, I wasn't like you. And so, but my dad worked a lot. My dad is also an alcoholic. But I didn't know that either until he went the very first time that I ever went to treatment. I think I was around like 11 years old.
He went to treatment.
And, we live way out in Marietta on the west side. So it was a long, long time ago, over 30 years ago. And so you could leave your kids at home at 11 and 10 years old and leave, and go do whatever. And so one night, like my parents left and only my mom came home, and she came into the room and she told me that she had taken my dad to treatment. And, I didn't know anything about that, what that was. And, your dad's an alcoholic. And so, okay, and And then we would go and visit him, you know, a few times a week or whatever. And then, so that's kind of like, that was the first time that recovery was introduced to me a little bit, but, you know, because of my dad. And, you know, he would get out and not drink for a period of time and then go back to treatment and then do the same thing over and over again. And then it finally got to a point where my mom just couldn't do it anymore. You know, she didn't understand the addict, the alcoholic. She couldn't understand, why can't you stop? Why can't you stop for your kids? Why can't you stop for me, your wife, you know, for anything? And, you know, and eventually she was just like, you got to go. You know, I can't handle this anymore. And not long after that is probably when I started to dabble in some, you know, I always had older friends. So I don't know. It's like the stuff just found me. My dad always had plenty of alcohol in the house. And I don't know why, but I don't know why, but I was like, oh, there's vodka on top of the refrigerator. Let's fill your jug on your way to school with that, you know? And, you know, so at 13 years old, that's what I was doing, you know? But I mean, before that, like growing up, I had a pretty good life. There's nothing that I could think back and be like, with my parents anyway, like, they didn't abuse me. They didn't, other things happen in my life by other people, but never by my parents, you know? So yeah, but I didn't, you know, looking back on it, I was like, life was not so bad. Yeah. You just made it out to be so terrible. Like, what's wrong with you? People would be happy to have that kind of life, but yeah, no, not me.
Yeah. No, I get it. And I identify a lot with like the dad going in and out of treatment early on. And I remember my aunt taking, I didn't know what was going on though, you know, but I remember them dropping him off somewheres and then me staying with them for a little while. And definitely the getting out. And you've heard me share my story before, right? And like the him going back to using Dill, you know, and like having rules though. It went from like not having any rules when he was like always drunk to like having like being
a dad. Now all of a sudden I want to be dad. And now you have rules.
Sucks. You know what I mean? Yeah. And but I definitely identify with that. And then also what you said about like being 13 years old and like taking out, and like when you have kids and you have a daughter, you know, like when you have kids and you think 13 years old, you're such a baby. You're like at 18 years old, you're still like so young, you know, and to like think about like us doing stuff like that is like insane, you know.
Absolutely.
It's just it's almost unbelievable, you know. I'm sure if like normal people are listening, like 13, you know,
13, right? Right.
And they're like, yeah,
easy 13. I mean, I spent my 16th birthday in treatment.
Wow.
And the same treatment facility that my dad came from.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. How'd you end up there?
Oh man, you know, I was just a mess, you know. Like I said, I was filling up my you know, jugs. You know, in high school you have your drinks from like gym or whatever, you know what I mean? Then that was filled up with alcohol, whatever alcohol my dad had. And then I would walk to the bus stop every morning. And, you know, my friends were always older. So, you know, they weren't going to school. They were going to work, or they were going to get high. They were going to do something. They would stop at the bus stop and we'd smoke a joint or whatever. I mean, by the time 7:30 rolled around, I was done. I was done, you know, and then, So, and that just went on. And of course, as I continue to do those things, the more I rebelled against my mother, who kicked my father out of the house. You know what I mean? Like, and so just one thing led to another. I couldn't, I was running away. God, I put my parents through hell. Yeah. And then, one of the, I think, so I have an older brother who's now passed away, and he lived in New Jersey, New York, whatever. And he would always come down for the summers, and we would hang out. And like, he would, every time we would drink, we would smoke, we would do blow, whatever. We would do everything. But he was only in town for a couple of weeks, right? And then he would leave town, call my dad or call my mom and be like, by the way, Erica's doing cocaine.
Hey, snitch.
Bro, like...
we were doing cocaine.
We did cocaine. What are you talking about? But now he's back living with his mother, back in New Jersey or New York, and then and they're like, "Well, I'm the only one here, and I'm the one with the problem." And I had been thrown into Youth Crisis Center next door to River Region at one point, and then after that, I went to run away, and I thought I was getting away with something. I went out the window, and I could hear my mom's car start, and she's just smarter than me. Yeah. And she backed up, and then she drove around to the side of the house where I was standing. I was standing on the side of the house like, woo, she's about to leave, and I'm on a jet. Yeah. And then she like drove around the side of the house. She's like, get in the car. And I'm like, oh. And she's like, busted. You need help. Like, and so she asked me if I wanted to, get help. And I told her yes. But a part of that is I didn't want her rules either. Although there was clearly I had a problem. But, so I had agreed because for twofold, one, I need help, and two, I don't have to live with you while I'm getting help. And so I went back to the same treatment facility as an adolescent that my dad had been in and out of for years at that point, And so 5 years in and out of there. And then I was in there at 15. And then I stayed in there, at the time you could do like on your parents' insurance, like 28 days or whatever. And so I stayed my little 28 days, and I came home, and, of course, my parents, made sure I had a car, and, I was able to drive. And I went to meetings for a couple of months, and I met some people, and then, I met some new people, but I never stopped hanging out with the old people either. Yeah. Like they tell us all the time, like people, places, and things. Hello, you're not going to stay clean, but of course I was smarter than those people. And so, before I knew it, I was driving past the Winners Club on Cassett Avenue and yelling out the window how stupid they were and how smart I am as I'm like trashed hanging out the window of some passenger car, like throwing one up. And like, you're an idiot, but that's what happened, and then that was it, They're
probably like, I wonder how long it'll take till she gets back.
Right. She'll be back. Don't worry. Exactly. I knew to say I never went back to that meeting. Not that particular one anyway. So yeah, that was, there was no big event that happened, to put me in that first treatment facility though. But my dad, because my dad knew about recovery, wasn't necessarily clean, but he knew that there's clearly a problem that maybe if we nip it in the butt early, she won't be
Yeah.
40 years old going through what I'm going through now,
Yeah.
or whatever. Not 40, but he was younger than that, but whatever, but that didn't work.
Yeah. Clearly.
Clearly. Clearly. I didn't get clean until I was 32.
Wow.
So 15, first time in treatment. I got clean at 32.
Wow.
So took a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of pain, I'm sure.
Yeah.
In that time period.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about some of that?
I mean, sure. If I can remember any of it.
No pressure. No pressure.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the end of my, I mean, man, there's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot, but,
I do want to ask you this. You were talking about your mother. So do you believe that, at the time, you had like a lot of dislike for your mother, or was it manipulation for her kicking you out, or some of both?
Probably a little.
Because very confusing.
Yeah.
As a teenager.
Yeah. Well, right. I mean, and as a teenager, there's definitely. I mean, I was a mess, and I didn't like my mother. Like my mom had all the rules, right? And listen. My mom called. No, let me start over. Sorry, I called DCF on my mom. This is a true story. I called DCF on my mom because she got so mad at me one time, and like she put her hands on my neck, and like she was done with me, and so she left a mark on my neck, and I was in school. And like the dean of girls walked by and they knew Erica by her first name. And I frequented that office often. And she's like, she thought it was a hickey, and it was not. And it was a perfect opportunity for me to blow my mom up. And so I was like, oh yeah, my mom did that. My mom choked me. She did that. And they're like, what? Yeah. And so they, she couldn't believe what she was saying. And they were like, do you want to, it wasn't even DCF at this time. It was HRS. And so they were like, oh God, I don't even know. Like
Department of Children and Families.
Yeah, it was Department of Children and Families, but it was HRS at the time. And so she's like, do you want to call somebody? I was like, absolutely. Call HRS. So they did. And I was in high school, and it was after, so it was after I had gone to treatment. And so HRS comes in and they talk to me, and I'm like, yep, my mom strangled me and she tried to kill me. And it's so ridiculous. I have to laugh about it. So they called my mom, and we were sitting in the chairs next to one another, and they had connecting chairs, the arm connected, right? And like she's just sitting there, and I'm sitting next to her, and like I knock her arm off of the arm, and then I'm like, she hit me. And they're like, what? And so like, the police got called, they carried me away. Like I was just like, I was
uncontrollable.
I was
out of control.
Terrible child.
Yeah.
And so it just didn't stop. So that was kind of the things that I did always. So after that, my mom met with like HRS and with my folder of everything as a parent of what we have tried to do for this child, and everything that she has done in return. And so when they sat, because, it's a serious thing when you have HRS involved in your life. And so my mom carried the folder down to the guy that she had a meeting with, and he read through the folder and he shut it, and he looked at my mom and he was like, I would have killed her.
Yeah. It was a different time then.
It was a
Yeah.
very different time then.
Yeah.
And like he just pushes the envelope back and he's like, or the folder back, and he's like, I would have killed her.
Mhm.
He was like, you haven't done anything wrong. Have a good day.
Yeah.
Hopefully she'll get the help that she needs.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was like the stupid stuff that I did. And, of course, looking back, it was like, I was such a terrible person. And then, somehow, some way, I made it through school. I graduated, and through all the hell that I gave everybody, I graduated, and then shortly after that, sorry,
Okay?
shortly after that, I got, I guess, pregnant with my daughter.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And
How old were you then?
I had her at 20, so I was 19.
Mm.
And I graduated at 18 because, of course, I did fail a couple of years. Yeah. But I graduated at 18, and then not long after, I graduated high school. I thought that I could do whatever I wanted to do while I was still living under my mother's roof. And my mom was like, no, like you still have rules. You're still under my roof. And I was like, this is ridiculous, and she had, it got to the point after I graduated, like I was just out every single night and I would just come home whenever I wanted to. Mm-hmm. And then she came to me and was like, listen, let's make a deal. You pick any 2 days a week to just stay home and be home. And I was like, she's like, that way you can just rest. And I'm like, okay. So I picked Wednesdays and Thursdays because Wednesdays and Thursdays is when like 90210 and
nice. Taking us back.
These nights were the 2 nights that these shows were on, and the other one, I forget what the other one was on, but they were on Wednesdays and Thursday night.
Creek.
Yes. So those were the nights I was picking so I could stay home and I could watch these shows. And then Thanksgiving obviously is on a Thursday. The night before is Wednesday. All of my friends don't have to work the next day. And I mean, the day before Thanksgiving is like the biggest drinking day of the year. Mm. Hello? Mm. I'm not coming home. Yeah. And so I did make it home eventually. And then my mom was like, you got to go. Like in the middle of the night when I came home and I was not okay. And she was like, and I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll leave in the morning. And she's like, no, you'll leave now. Oh. So I went back to my boyfriend's house, who is my daughter's father. Mm. And it's where I wanted to be anyway. And then I guess around that same time is Alexis's birthday she was born December 1st. So, I mean, I got pregnant shortly after that, but during that time, that I was pregnant, my parents had kicked me out. My mom had kicked me out, and I didn't have a relationship with her or my father the whole time that I was pregnant with my daughter until 2 weeks before my daughter's due date. Because her due date was November 24th. And my dad was like, he randomly reached out to me and said, do you want to go have lunch? And I did. And we were driving down the road and he was like, so now I am clearly 8.5 months pregnant. Yeah. But I'm not clearly 8.5 months pregnant because I have a very long torso. So I hid it very well. You couldn't really tell. Yeah. The only thing that you could tell was my face was chubby. But that was it. And my dad was like, what's going on? Have you been to the doctor? And I was like, yeah. He's like, what's happening with you? You good? And I'm like, yeah. Pretty good. He's like, I know there's something going on. And I'm like, do you? what is it, Dad? And he was like, you're pregnant. And I'm like, oh, you're right. I am. And I'll never forget like being on Lane Avenue, Memorial Park, and him slamming on the brakes, like, what the hell? And I was like, yeah. He's like, when is the due date? And I was like, that was November 12th. It was my brother's birthday, and we were going to have lunch for my brother's birthday, and my daughter's due date was November 24th. Wow. I was like, 12 days. Wow. And he's like, oh my God. So prior to that, when during those other years when I was living at home, like I had gotten pregnant and I was under my dad's insurance, and my parents were like, no way, no how are you having a baby? And so they carried me down to have an abortion. And then when I got down there to have the abortion, it's not what I wanted to do, but I was 15.
Yeah.
And when I went in to have that done, because they were making me do that, they were like, you're not even supposed to be here. You need to go to the hospital and have an actual like DNC, because you're, first of all, you're too far along. Second of all, there's no heartbeat. So like I had a stillborn baby, and then so that was just another one of those things that was just like, and actually I had to be 16 years old because I was actually working, and they told me to go straight to the hospital so I can have a procedure done. And I didn't. I went home, and then I went to work on Monday. And then when I called the hospital, they were like, you were supposed to be here 2 days ago. But it's something that I didn't want to face. I'm really good at ignoring things that need to be taken care of. And, if you ignore it long enough, it'll go away. And that's actually what I did with Alexis, my daughter, is, if you ignore the pregnancy for 9 months, it'll go away. I didn't go to the doctor with her until I was almost 8 months pregnant with her. Yeah. So like, it really is a mentality of, if you ignore it, it'll go away. And I know that it's horrible, but I was young and didn't know. I mean, of course I knew better, but I mean,
you were 18 or 19.
I was, yeah.
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 There's not a lot of life experience there.
No. No. And everything that I had done in life, I mean, it was crap.
Yeah.
I mean, so yeah, it was tough. And then I had written my mom a letter to let her know that I was pregnant around that same time, so I didn't use while I was pregnant with my daughter. So I knew that was wrong. But, and I also was like, well, obviously I'm not an addict, and these things that these people have been telling me or whatever in the meetings or whatever that I had gone to, like, it didn't apply to me because I didn't do anything while I was pregnant with my daughter. Even though I ignored it, I didn't do anything to harm other than not taking care of myself. And, so it was another reason for me to, believe that I didn't have a drinking problem or a drug problem.
Yeah.
Because real addicts can't not do this for 9 months.
Yeah.
And then I had her, and it was good for about the first year and a half of her life, and then me and her dad split up.
Were y'all living with his parents, or?
We were living with his mother.
With his mother.
Yeah, and his mother was, she was an alcoholic also, so she got off work. She worked like servers. So, evening time. And then she would leave her job and go to the local bar. And then when she was done at the local bar at 2 a.m., she would come home. And then she would either come home and drink with us and use with us, or do the exact opposite and be mad and throw everybody in the house out. You never knew what you were going to get. But yeah, we live with her. She didn't know I was pregnant either.
Wow.
Yeah. She didn't know I was pregnant. And then when she did know I was pregnant, like they never, it's just weird. It's just weird. Like they would order pizza and never offer me any. Even when they knew I was pregnant.
Yeah.
Her or my daughter's dad. Like I would wait until everybody passed out, and then I would sneak out into the living room and get a piece of pizza out of the pizza box. Hopefully there was a piece left, and I would go sit in the bathroom and eat it.
Yeah.
And then I would go back to bed.
Yeah.
And then, or I would take her dad to drop him off at work when he would work, and I would find a couple of quarters and go to Hardee's, and I could get a buttered biscuit for like $1 or whatever, or 2 of them for $1 or something like that, 2 for 50 cents, and that's what I would eat.
Yeah.
So there was nobody ever even though she didn't know that I was pregnant for the longest time. She found out when I was pregnant about 7 months pregnant. But even after that, it was like, hey, we have pizza out here. Do you want some? No, none of that ever actually changed. He would go and sit out in the other room with his mom and eat pizza and watch TV or whatever. And I would just be in the bedroom by myself.
Yeah.
hungry.
And when you're pregnant, you would think that did you think about but your resentment held you back from you think how your mom would have been towards you as opposed to living in that environment?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, my mom, I don't know, my mom would have been, as soon as my mom found out that I was pregnant, she was there.
Yeah.
She was there.
Yeah.
She would never come into that house that I lived in with them. But when she found out, I still have the letters, that I wrote her a letter and said, hey, Mom, I know that you're mad at me. I know that you hate me, but I missed her so much during that time. Every night I cried myself to sleep because I know no matter what, that lady loves me.
Yeah.
To the core. So every night I would go to bed and I would just cry for my mom, and knowing that but I had to, she was mad at me and I was mad at her, and I had to stay in this thing. And then when I finally wrote her the letter and was like, hey, Mom, I know that you're mad at me, but I want you to know that I love you and I'm about to have your granddaughter.
Yeah.
And she is, I get my stubbornness from her.
Mm-hmm.
And so she wrote me a letter back. And then at the bottom of the letter, she's like, now you call me. And of course, I immediately I called her.
Yeah.
I called her and from that day forward, up until I had Alexis, which was only, a couple of weeks time, every day you'd hear out front, beep, beep. And I'd look out the window and she'd be out there, and she's like, and I'd run out there, and then she had something for the baby, a car seat or crib or whatever, clothes, bottles, whatever. I mean, even stuff that I didn't need, she was just bringing it, she was super excited about, she wasn't happy about it, but at this point there was nothing she could do about it. So she was like, I'm going to have a grandbaby and I'm going to love her and I'm going to take care of my daughter and do whatever I need to do. And that's what she did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's treating you how you're kind of supposed to be treated whenever you're
Right.
pregnant.
Right.
Yeah. When you said that, man, it took me back to my childhood, and I remember, and they had food and stuff in the house, but I always felt uncomfortable going to the refrigerator and getting something to eat because of little comments and stuff that they would say. And yeah, such a bad way to feel. You know what I mean? Like now, it took me a long time to be comfortable going to other people's house too. When I would be like, "Is it okay if I have something to drink or something?"
Right.
And well, now because I'm so the opposite. Like probably because of the way that I grew up, but I'm a little more comfortable with it now, though.
Yeah.
I kind of just go, all right, look at people's shit.
Yeah. What you got in here?
Exactly. Yeah. It took a while to grow out of that, though.
Yeah.
Such a horrible feeling.
Yeah. It's not. It is a horrible feeling.
Yeah.
I never would hope that for anybody. Like, and at the time I was just like, this sucks, but whatever, but looking back on it, I was like, that's awful.
Looking back. Yeah.
I could never do that to anybody, that I mean, you would be, the response that I didn't get from his mother was quite surprising for me, honestly. Which was, it was, I mean, of course, disappointment, right? We're 19 years old and we're about to have a baby. Nobody's happy about it. Yeah. But at this point, at 7 months and 8.5 months and 9 months is when all of you guys find out, like, at that point, you got to embrace it. I mean, you would think that those days after that, it was like, bring Erica a plate of food.
Yeah.
Never happened.
Yeah.
Never happened. I don't have any memory of that.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So you had her.
I had her.
How was that process?
I had her. It was good. I mean, it was good. I mean, she's she's my daughter. No.
But you stayed clean through this whole time, basically, right?
No.
Or you said you wasn't drinking.
No, I wasn't drinking while I was pregnant with her. I wasn't doing drugs either. I wasn't doing anything while I was pregnant with her. And I did okay for the first 1.5 years of her life. I worked and, whatever, took care of her. And we took care of her the best that, whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever. I say that very loosely. But then we split up. And then when we split up is when I kind of just went to the races. I had, in my mind, I was like, you didn't use or drink for 9 months, basically. And then you didn't drink or use really in the past 1.5 years. Maybe I did a little bit, but never a lot, ever. Yeah. Nothing that I could ever remember. But then when when I finally kicked him out for, just abuse and he's just not a good person, when I finally had enough, like I was like, let's go to the bar. And then of course, we go out to the bar and then like seeks like, and you find your people like that, and it didn't take very long and I found my people.
Where were you living at this time?
We had our own place by this time.
Okay.
Yeah. So then it was just me and my daughter and, but not for very long because, I want to say by the time she was 3, I guess she was living with my mom and I was out doing whatever, God knows what. And, luckily once again, my parents knew that I had a problem and, there was really nothing they could do about the problem. They had tried that in years past, and that didn't work. So one thing that they could control was my daughter being in the equation. So they just took her out. And then I would do, I wanted to be a mom, I wanted to figure out how I could do all of these drugs and drink and work and be a mom too, because that's what I'm supposed to do. And try to make it all work together. And of course it never worked.
Yeah.
You could never just, I couldn't just be a mom and be a responsible individual. Like, no.
Gotta have fun.
I gotta have fun and I have to drink. And I'm only, I'm 21 and 22 years old. I'm like, I missed a lot while I was pregnant in that year and a half. Like, I got some making up to do. And that's really how, that was my mindset, is like, I was a good person for almost 2 years or, through 2.5 years, whatever. So, but, I eventually lost, I lost the place that we were living. I lost the car that we had, I had lost my job, any amount of money that, I had a decent job and 401ks, savings, whatever. Because when I'm on the right track, I do really, really well, but when I get off the track, I'm like, I'm left with nothing. I mean, it was so bad at one point that, I moved in with the babysitter because why not? It's the babysitter. You could live with a babysitter and she would be fine and you could do what you needed to do. It's like, I thought it was perfect.
Yeah.
And then, once again, my parents would step in and be like, so I mean, there were so many times that I would get it together and bring her home and then throw it all away again. They would step in. I want to be a mom. Let me go do the right thing. And then I would bring her back home again. I did this her whole life, until I finally got clean when she was 13 years old. But I never, I was traded this for that, and whether it be good things or bad things, I always traded them out. I never found anything like I've found in recovery now. It's like, stop trading all these things out. Just stop doing those things and, get your shit together.
Yeah.
But, you would think that, you hear it all the time, like, not getting clean for your kids or whatever. We don't get clean for any of those things. And while at the same time, I wish I would have, life would have been a heck of a lot different than what it is now, but it took what it took. Yeah. I mean, Alexis, my daughter, had a heck of a life just from me and the things that I subjected her to for no reason at all, other than the fact that I was an addict. And I used to say that when my parents stepped in and took my daughter away from me, that like it was the best thing for her, and it was the best thing for her, but it was more of the selfish of like, yeah, it's the best thing for her to be there so I could be free to do all of the things that I want to do. And at the end, like one of the last times they took her, my dad was living in basically an empty apartment in Riverside, and with my roommate. And I mean, we were probably there for like 30 days for the simple fact that we were going to pay next month's rent. You know what I mean? Like we got enough money to get the place, and then well, that was it. You're not going to stay next month because you don't have the money to pay the rent. And but my brother actually lived in the little apartment in the back, and so that's how we made it into that apartment. And but yeah, my dad had written a letter to me and taped it on the front door and was on Thanksgiving. There's something about me and Thanksgivings. Bad things happen on Thanksgiving. I don't know why. It's happened so many times that it's just like, I don't really like Thanksgiving. But on Thanksgiving, he wrote like a letter, and he was like, he's like, you're going to kill yourself. And I'm not going to stand by and watch this happen. Like you'll never see your daughter again at this point. You don't contact me. Don't contact your mother. Don't contact your brother who lived behind me, but whatever. Like we're done. We are so done with you. And while you're out here killing yourself, I have to be okay with you killing yourself. And at this point, my dad actually had some clean time. So while I knew about recovery, like I knew that it worked for some other people, right? Mm-hmm. But with my dad, it didn't work for him.
Yeah.
It's not going to work for me. Mm. And it was always like for recovery is never going to work for me because it never worked for my dad. I mean, look, you guys have tried. He's been in and out of detox. He's been in and out of treatment facilities, all kinds of stuff. You guys have done everything with this dude and y'all can't get him together. Yeah. Like, you're not going to be able to get me together either. So recovery didn't work, but it could work for everybody else, but no, not me or my dad.
Yeah.
But at this point in time, like I forgot, like my dad did get substantial amount of clean time. Mm. My dad's since passed, but like he passed clean. But those are the things that I chose not to see. Mm. I chose to see the fact that, when I was 11 years old, when he went to his treatment center for the very first time, he didn't stay clean then.
Yeah.
Or many years after that. So it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
Your dad's clean today, Erica. Nope. We don't see any of that. That's not true. So it's like we see what we want to see, when whatever for whatever it is that we're going through or whatever. So, but yeah, they were pretty much done with me. And, my daughter had to be an adult at 8 years old, 9 years old, like literally had to, when she was staying at the house. At some point in all of this, I bought a house in like 2002. And it was one of my periods of time where I was doing okay. But I was at closing, like I was already headed back down.
Yeah. It's a celebration.
And,
I got a house.
Exactly. I've arrived once again. Yeah. I've arrived and I'm about to throw it all away all over again. And so I had my house, and my daughter would go and spend the night every once in a while with my mom or whatever. And but my mom had her way of asking my daughter questions to get information about what was going on with me, right? And so
you don't have to ask kids much, really.
No. I mean, they'll tell it all. But so she would be like, but I was probably, I mean, I can't remember ever saying, no, that's not true. I've definitely said like, don't tell my mom, oh, yeah. You know what I mean? To her. Yeah. But, like, so she had gone to spend the night with my mom or whatever, and she was asking about my boyfriend at the time, and my daughter always hated the fact that I smoked, and so did my mom. And so she'd be like, "Is your mom smoking cigarettes?" And Alexis was like, "Yes, always, whatever." And then she's like, "Well, Eric doesn't smoke, does he?" And she's like, "No, he only smokes those cigarettes that you pass around." And my mom's like, and then my mom would let me know, like, "Oh yeah, those cigarettes that you only pass around, huh?" And I'm like, "Oh, great, whatever." But then, Alexis would be extremely tired. My mom would pick her up from school and be like, why are you so tired? Mama, I didn't get to sleep last night." She's like, "Why?" And she's like, "Well, because I have to make sure that Mom doesn't burn down the house." And my mom's like, "What? What are you talking about?" And she says, "Well, she falls asleep with her cigarettes in her hand, and I'm afraid that she's going to burn down the house. So I have to make sure that that doesn't happen." At 9 years old.
Yeah.
That shit's not cool.
No.
Or driving down the road, she'd be like, "Well, I haven't like driven a car before, but I've driven a car before." And my mom would be like, "What are you talking about?" Yeah. And she's like, "Well, when Mom falls asleep, when she's at the driving down the road, like I have to grab the steering wheel to drive and wake her up." Like, this child who she basically was robbed of her childhood, had to become my mom at 9 years old, So yeah, pretty crazy stuff. And, I couldn't see it for what it was. I couldn't see that this is complete insanity and it's totally not fair.
Yeah. Do you have like a lot of, is it kind of a stupid question, a lot of shame and guilt?
I do, but I do not let it like control me as much as it used to. I don't let it have as much power over me as it used to. It used to have a lot more power, which I could, be, buy and give and do and all of these things to make up for all of these years of me being just a shitty person. And then, but now it's like, I did what I did and I've been clean longer than you. I got clean when she was 13 and I've been clean for 16 years now. So, all of those things I have, I'm not going to pay for those things anymore. And she was actually very good at letting me know, like, you were a piece of shit and I'm going to remind you of that. Remember when you did this, remember when you did that. And, and it came to a point in my recovery that like, and after doing step work and after, sponsorship and everything else that we do, like that, I'm not that same person anymore. And those things are what I did. They are not who I am. I am a good person. I am a good mother and I love you dearly. And you don't have to throw those things in my face. And I don't have to continue to feel all of the same shame and guilt that I used to. Do I still have it? Yeah, of course I do. Do I wish that it never happened? Absolutely. But it's part of my story. It's what happened and it is what it is. I used to really let it, directly with Alexis. I used to,
dictate your behavior.
Yeah. Everything that I did for her was because of everything that I didn't do for so many years. And so, not so much anymore.
Yeah.
Like, I look at her now and I'm like, who, by the way, is like on her way to Thailand right now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. She's on her way to Thailand right now. And I'm like, you know what? Like, I bet she is 28 years old too. So we've had, about to be, yeah. She's 28, 29. Anyway.
She's a woman now.
She's a grown woman. She's
a grown
married
woman.
and grown and is done very well for herself.
Mm-hmm.
And, sometimes I'm like, I didn't have any part of that, but I mean, I kind of did.
Yeah.
I've been clean for 16 years.
Mm-hmm.
I did have some part in that, and thankfully, you hear it all the time. It's like, especially people in the rooms where we're at, it's like our kids either maybe not, kids that came into recovery later,
Mm-hmm.
right? But that got clean when we got clean when our kids are teenagers or whatever, or even less than that, younger than that. It's like when they get to that funky age, it's like they run to, the recovery or go the complete opposite direction and go towards the drugs and the crazy stuff. And I'm really, really grateful that I didn't have those struggles with her. She saw true life, real life addiction and what it does to people and what it does to me, what it did to me. And thankfully, she was like, I don't want any part of that. And so she's been able to do really, really well for herself. And I'm extremely proud of her. Like incredibly proud of her, especially, where she came from. Like when Jake and I got together, he was like, she's not. And I'm like, because we had different ideas kind of the things that she would do or need to do in the home.
Mm-hmm.
And my idea was like, stay in school, make good grades, do well for yourself. I don't care if she doesn't wash the dishes. I'll wash the dishes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and at first Jake was like, I mean, it's just every day. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. You don't understand the 13 years of her life and what she's gone through. Like, she's a good kid. Let her just stay on this path. If she can just stay doing this, I don't care if her room is messy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Ain't worried about the little shit.
I'm not worried about those things. What I want is for her to be able to, to graduate school, go to college and do well for herself. Mm-hmm. That's really all I want. And where he was like, she needs to wash the dishes. She needs to clean her room. She needs to do her laundry. And I'm like, dude, this is not going to work because we are not seeing eye to eye here. But yeah, obviously we got through that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's part of being in a relationship. Too,
yeah. 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 So, yeah.
So you got clean. What was that like? Early recovery?
Oh, a lot. No sleep. A lot of hanging out, lots of coffee,
and
a lot of fun. Yeah. And so when I got clean, like, gosh, I was in. So it's funny because I have a checkbook and a driver's license that has 2981 Parental Home Road on it. Everybody knows what that is River Region. My checkbook and my driver's license have this address on it because I was there for so long. So all of 2006. And then when I got out of treatment, I went to their halfway house and I stayed there for 6 months. And then from there, 6 months to the day, I went and got my first apartment. Let me back up. So before I got clean the last time, so I was in River Region the beginning of 2006. Mm-hmm. I got out. I used while I was in there. I went to the halfway house. I continue to use. They drug test me. Lo and behold, I popped dirty for everything on the panel. And they were like, you got to go. And so they kicked me out. I went back to the streets, whatever. And I had a boyfriend at the time who was like, I don't want you on the streets, like getting your drugs. So will you get back on methadone? And I had been on methadone years prior. But he thought that me getting back on methadone, he's like, I'll take you down there every day. You know, if you get back on it, I just don't want you out here in the streets getting whatever is out here. And I was like, sure, whatever, I'll do it. And so I got, we did that. And then at the end of my using, I had been on it for just a couple of months. And then when I went into treatment on October 6th, that same treatment facility was this treatment facility that was giving me the methadone. And so in order for me to stay on your prescribed medication, they brought it to me every single day. And then, you know, I went through some battles trying to get off of it while I was in there. They didn't really want to do that. It's not a, you know, whatever. They have their way of making money, right? And I don't necessarily agree with it, but it's what they do for a lot of people. And so I fought with them, try to get them to bring me down, try to come off of it before I got out of that treatment facility. And I did get them to bring me down a little bit, but not a lot. And then while I was in the halfway house, I still was on their property. So I was still required to take my prescribed medication, because if you're not taking it, then you're not abiding by their rules and you got to go. And so I had to do what I had to do, right? To get whatever my life was going to look like in order. And so I stayed in the halfway house for 6 months, and they brought, you know, every day they brought it to me. And then on my last day I was moving out, or the day before I was moving out, I went over and got my dose. And they were like, we'll see you tomorrow on Park Street. And I looked at them and I was like, you'll never fucking see me again. And they were like, and I was like, never.
So you're going to meetings at this time?
I was.
So like you're going to meetings, are you kind of like feeling guilty?
Yeah.
In the meeting, being on like, what do they call it? Medically assisted treatment?
Yeah. I went to meetings every day, multiple times a day. I had a sponsor who knew that I was on methadone, and she knew the steps that I was taking to get off of it. She knew the struggles that I had with like the higher ups in the corporate office or whatever, trying to come off of it. And thank God for her, because I mean, there was many times that I was so mad, like across the street is Drew Park, and I would just go over there screaming, crying, being on the phone, like, I cannot stay here anymore. I want off of this stuff so bad, and they will not bring me down. They will not help me. They will not do anything for me. And so many times, like, I almost just like gave up and left. And thank God I didn't. I did what I had to do. My mom, my dad, my sponsor knew that I was on methadone. I didn't really share it in the rooms because people have their opinions. But like I said, I had to do what I had to do. Like, they were going to kick me out and I didn't have anywhere to go. Yeah. I couldn't go to my parents. They were done with me. So, you know, I had to do that. And so, there was a plan in place. And me, my sponsor, and my dad had talked about it, and we knew that I was going to detox. Coming off of that stuff. Big time. And so I moved into my new apartment with a bed that was given to me by another addict, and that was about it.
Mm.
So all I had, I think I had a chair that was given to me, but that's all that I had. And I stayed in my apartment like the first night. And then the second night, and then after that, I called my dad and I said, it's time to go. And the plan was that I was going to go to detox to come off the methadone. Mm. And that was only there to protect me from me, because I was afraid that in the middle of the night, all alone, I was going to be hurting so bad that I still knew the phone numbers. I still knew the people. Like all of that was still fresh in my mind. It was a phone call away. Mm-hmm. And I knew it would be that easy to put my hands on it again, but I didn't want to. And so, my dad picked me up and we checked into detox, and I was there for, I think I was in there for 3 days. I got out, on my birthday, June 17th, 2007. Mm-hmm. And my mom took me back home. My sponsor picked me up. There was another lady in the rooms, and they were having a gathering, and then they were also like including into Erica's getting off. And they just kind of incorporated the fact that I was getting off of methadone, although a lot of people didn't know. There was a select few that did know. But while I was in the detox, I didn't tell my sponsor that I was going. So there's probably a part of me that was like, listen, I wanted to get clean, but at the same time, like if I could figure out how to get clean and use successfully, I would totally do it.
Yeah.
I would totally do it.
Yeah.
And, so of course there's a part of me that like wanted to use, especially for the way that I was feeling. So I was going to manipulate a situation and see how this was going to all pan out. I didn't tell my sponsor I was going, although she knew the plan. Mm-hmm. I didn't tell her when I went. And so I hadn't called her in a couple of days. And then finally I picked up the payphone in detox and I called her. And she was like, where have you been? And I was like, listen, I have a question. Do I need to go get another white key tag? And she said, and I didn't tell her why I was asking, but in my mind, I already knew if she told me that I had to go get another white key tag, in my mind, I was going to go use again. So I didn't tell her why, because I didn't want my reason to. That's
kind of an open-ended question.
Yeah. I didn't want it to persuade her either way.
Yeah.
So, I said, do I need to go pick up another white key tag? And she said, I do not believe so. And I said, why? And she said, Erica, since you have been out of that treatment facility and been able to go to meetings, you have gone to meetings, you have shared honestly, you have read the literature, you have prayed, you have written, you have done everything that a recovering addict does. Mm-hmm. And for that, no, I do not think you need to go pick up another white key tag. And I was like,
Not the answer
I was looking for. However, I was like,
why you gotta be all encouraging?
Okay. She's right. I did do all of those things. Mm-hmm. I was in recovery. Even though I was on methadone, I was in recovery, and people have a different opinion. I shared a couple of years ago. It was, at the mustard seed meeting, and maybe it was right before COVID or something. And so at that time I had 14 years clean. And so for those that are listening, that are judging, right? Yeah. Like I shared in the meeting, it must just do the same thing. Like if you're judging the fact that I didn't go pick up a white key tag, fine.
Yeah.
I have 15 years clean.
And then what?
Not 16.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you're going to take that year away from me. Like, you can do that if you want to judge me for what I've gone through, but I mean, she was right.
Yeah.
She was right. And so with that, like, so I got out and, I got an apartment that was really close to my job so I could walk there because I didn't have a car. I mean, I had a bed and a chair and no car. And so in the middle of June 18th, I was walking to work in the hot summer day, still detoxing.
Yeah.
Off of this crap. And then I would get home from work and people would pick me up and we would go to meetings and we would hang out all night long. Like, I literally hung on to everybody I could. I held on to their coattails. You go into a meeting, like, and when one person to another, and enjoyed the hell out of myself.
Yeah.
Like, I had so much fun. But leading up to that, like, of course I wanted my daughter to come home. Right. And when I was out looking for those apartments, my dad was taking me around to all of the apartments and I would go in and I'd be like, can I get an application? And they were like, 1 bedroom or 2. I'm like, 2, my daughter was with us that day, 2 bedroom. And then we went and met my mom for lunch and, they were like, Alexis, go get the, applications out of the car. So it just left me, my mom and my dad sitting at the table. And then they turned to me and they said, I don't think she should come live with you yet. And I was devastated. What?
Yeah.
I'm like, I have 9 or 8 months clean. What are you talking about? I can't have my kids. She can't come and live with me. What are you talking about? And they were like, no. They were like, you have not been a part of life, working, recovery. You haven't been a part of any of this for a very long time. All we want for you is to get clean and stay clean. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep having the fun. Keep hanging out. Keep doing all of the things that you're doing. And when the time comes, she'll come back home. And I was mad.
Yeah.
I was so mad. I'll never forget. It was a Saturday and I went to the youth and recovery home group at the Shack. And I didn't share a whole lot in meetings ever. First of all, there was the methadone thing that I didn't feel comfortable sharing. I shared when I had to, but I didn't share a lot. I still don't share a lot.
Yeah.
But I shared that night and I was livid. And I was like, these people, who the hell do they think they are? Like, I have 8 months clean. I've done this, and this, and this. And like, they're not even going to let my daughter move back in with me. And, like patting my own self on the back. Look how wonderful you are. And, and of course, after I got to share, people just look at me. It was like, keep coming back. We love you, whatever. And then another member, a longtime member, she has a lot of clean time. She came to me afterwards and she said, good for your parents. And I was like, bitch, you're just like them, and she's like, good for them for knowing that you need to focus on your recovery. This is the best thing that could ever happen for you. Like, be grateful that your parents are willing to do this for you, because not everybody has parents that are willing to step in and do this for you. And I was like, and so, yeah, I hung out a lot. I hung out late at night. I hung out, at all the meetings. Like, I did all the conventions. I did all the fun, and I loved every second of it. Yeah. And then when I got a year later, so I signed like a 9-month lease. And so by then I had, a year and a half, almost 2 years clean. And I moved from the 1-bedroom apartment to a 2-bedroom apartment in that same complex. And my daughter came home, and then my sharing and meetings was, I'm terrified.
Yeah.
I am now deathly afraid of my daughter coming and how this is going to change my recovery, how life is going to look so much different now that I have this, almost 15-year-old.
Yeah.
And living with me and having to be this full-time mom. And it really didn't change that much.
Yeah.
Like it really didn't change that much. Of course, I went home right after the meeting. That was at 8:00, and she went home with me. She was there with me. But I couldn't hang out and go to dinner and be out until 11, 12 o'clock at night because she had school the next day, but like all of the events that we did, everything that we did on the weekends and stuff like that. The only thing that really changed was the fact that we weren't out until, 11 o'clock at night on the weekday, which, I didn't really have any business being out that late at night anyway. And now I don't even want to be out that late ever. But, she just did all of those things with me, and then she, eventually, like, she became she was 16 and started dating a guy in the rooms.
I remember that.
Yeah.
I do.
Oh my gosh.
Gil, and it was,
yes.
Was it Gil?
Gil.
Yeah.
Gil.
Yeah.
Like when we were talking the other night and we were talking about Brandon being on, it's like thinking of Brandon when he came in at 19 years old, because they were like good friends.
Yeah.
And
which he just shared. He was just on the podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah. A couple weeks ago.
Yeah. So like this guy, he was a baby, and like our kids, like him and my daughter, like, and their friends, like they were all hanging out together. Like she was hanging out. And of course not everybody stayed. And then Gil at 364 days clean, decided to use, and she was heartbroken. But some of the coolest things that's ever happened, like in recovery, she knows where to go to feel better. Maybe not so much now. She's a little bit older now. But when she was 16 years old and that happened and she was devastated and crying on my lap, like just, I'm sure it was a little twofold. One, her heart was broken. But two, she knows recovery.
Yeah.
Right? And now he's no longer in recovery. He's no longer her boyfriend. And so I'll never forget her sitting at the house on Spring Park Road, just crying her eyes out. But me being able to say to her on many different occasions, whenever something in life is going on with her, do you want to go to a meeting, Alexis? And her answer is always yes. She can always come to a meeting and she knows that she will always leave feeling a little better.
Yeah.
Super cool.
Yeah.
That recovery has been such a part. But, too, because my dad was in recovery, when she was in a car seat, he would carry her to meetings.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, because there was a lot of those times, I was out using. And so when my mom or my dad was taking care of her because I was off on a run or whatever, then, since she was in a car seat, she's been in meetings.
It's crazy. Right?
It's crazy. It's crazy. And even still today, like, now she's grown up and she's married and like, her life is extremely busy. I never get to see her as often as I want to. But if something major was happening in her life and she was heartbroken and I would say, do you want to go to a meeting? I'm sure today her answer would still be yes. Because there's just something that she gets from it.
Yeah.
And super cool. So it not only saved my life, but it saved it saved her a lot too, you
Mhm.
know? So yeah, it's pretty cool. But, uh, yeah, life growing up, I mean, in recovery, and now we're both growing up together, you
Mhm.
know? She she, uh, she just did this thing with me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's how
Mhm.
it transcends into because the principles they're
Mhm.
not like they're universal.
Right.
They aren't only to people that are in recovery.
Right.
And we say a lot of times in the room about like, oh, people outside, like they could use
How they
this.
could use this
Yeah.
program for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. That like a lot of people go through life, I think, without like a look at themselves,
Mhm.
an honest look at themselves or doing that inventory and
Mhm.
stuff like we try to do as
Mhm.
much as possible.
Mhm.
And then also like that reality check and encouragement and all those things you get from people looking at your life through the lens of recovery.
Yep.
Like the lady in the room's telling you good for your parents,
Mhm. Mhm.
Um yeah, I think a lot of people get stuff out of that. What is
Mhm.
your life like today in
Oh,
recovery?
oh man. My life is full. It's so full.
I know it is.
It's
Doing
so
so well
full.
for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. Uh I never in a million years could have ever, especially if you knew me in early recovery or anybody knew me in early recovery, like to be married,
Mm,
like to have a husband, to be faithful, to be like this person that I never in a million years would ever imagine. Like, through uh my whole life, we were actually just talking about this the other day. Like, I always wanted to date. I always wanted to be with a person that was unavailable because it was easy.
mm,
Right? Like I could blame it all on you.
yeah,
Like, you're not available. You're in a relationship. Perfect. You're my guy.
yeah.
And I'm not proud of that, but I'm
Yeah,
just saying, like,
yeah,
that's what I
yeah.
wanted because, like, there was I never wanted any accountability. I didn't want to, I wanted to be able to do whatever the hell I wanted to do. And I didn't want to answer to any of your questions.
Mhm.
Jake, I still don't want to answer any of your questions, but, but, to be now almost married for, coming up on 7 years,
Mhm.
it's crazy to
Yeah.
me, and to continue to want to be married, because I didn't think I never dreamt of this for me.
Mhm.
Not necessarily because I didn't think that it could happen for me. It was more like I didn't want it for me.
Mm,
I never was that little girl growing up that wanted like the perfect house with the white picket fence with the 2.5 kids and the
mm.
dog. And like, that was never a dream for me. Never. I mean, maybe that's why I ended up the way that I ended up, just doing whatever, but um yeah, and that's kind of what my life is
Mm.
today, but I have 3 dogs and a 29-year or 28-year-old daughter. Um but yeah, it's crazy good. I'm able to been fortunate to be in the line of work that I'm in and make a career for myself, which I never thought. Like, when I got clean, I was like, I don't know what the heck I'm going to do. I can never go back to doing whatever it was I did before,
Mhm.
but to be self-employed and like be my own boss and be able to, not, that doesn't mean like I get to do whatever I want to do because I have to work even harder, I think, to keep the life that I have. But to just to be able to do that is super cool and be able to travel. Um, when Jake and I think when Jake and I got married around that time, we were getting married or after we got married, I was like, do we want to have a baby? And he was like, I mean, if that's what you want to do, that's what we can do. And I'm like, really? Mind you, I'm old, okay? I ain't got no business having no babies at the time I was 42 years old, right? No.
Yeah.
But maybe I'm going to have I'm just going to redo my life all over again. And Jake's like, if you want to have a baby, we can have a baby. But all of this traveling that we do, you can cut that shit out.
Sure can.
And I'm like, wait, what? And he's like, we won't be able to travel the way that we travel. We won't be able to do the things that we do. We won't have that freedom. And I'm like, oh. Okay, we'll just stick with having the 3 dogs and a daughter.
I think it's like you talk about in the rooms, like our diversity being our strength, and the difference between men and women. There's some like the practicality. Men are very simple and practical, and because it makes me think of my wife. Like she'll take on all these different things. I'm like, that's not doable, It's not doable, because it is that way. Like when you have a kid, like before we had her, we were like traveling all the time, and before I even met my wife, I was going out of town every weekend, and to have her now, and that shit came to an abrupt stop, right? An abrupt stop, because you got this little life, and you have. Is different highs, I guess, so to speak, of like raising a kid and milestones and like the love and all that stuff. But all that fun shit, selfish, and it's not bad selfish, but like the selfish fun stuff that you do, it definitely comes to even making meetings, when you want to make meetings. Like, she's got to be she don't have to be in bed early, but like she gets pretty fussy. Yeah. Right. She's tired, you know? And so it definitely changes all that. And I think you alluded to it earlier, talking about like addicts, like being like when you put them in an environment where they're not using like that energy, that like how successful and like how full your life can become and awesome in so many different ways. I've seen that story like over and over, and we've seen like people that, get lost in that and, go on to like, use and stuff. But like, we also see a lot of people that stay, like yourself. And it's been a pleasure to watch you grow in the room. Even like when you was taking a test. I remember years ago you was taking a test, and I think did you fail it one time? I did. And I remember you sharing about that in a meeting, like failing your test and you got to take it again. And it was either around the same time I was taking my boards, or it was like close to it. And for nursing, and I failed my test, and I thought about that, and I was like, man, I can do this, you know. So thank you for staying, and thank you for being an example. You touch a lot of people. We all touch a lot of people. Sure. Sometimes unknowingly. Yeah. And I'm not saying anything just because we're on the podcast and say it is true. It is true. Well, it's funny that you say that, because it has to be true, because you just saying like, and you failed the first time that you took that, like that was 11 years ago. Yeah. You know what I mean? And like my initial reaction was like, you listen to me when I share? Oh yeah. You know what I mean? Like, so obviously. For me to remember it. Yeah. And out of all the meetings I've been to. Right. It definitely stood out. Well, yeah. I mean, and there is so much of that, and people don't even know who's watching who. Yeah. What you're doing, like I see you. Yeah, I see you. Yeah, it sets that example, and for stuff that you go through, I hear a lot of stuff that I'm like, God, I hope I don't have to go through that, in recovery. But if I do, I know that I can make it out, and I can make it out clean. If some of those things happen. So, but it was a pleasure having you on the podcast. You did an amazing job. Thanks. I'm sure everybody's going to be like, we got to get Jake on soon too. Hopefully, if he's willing. Oh, he's willing. He's willing. I said to him on Thursday night, I was like, I'm going to go do the podcast with Brian. Who's like, Brian's getting my wife before he asked me. And we're like,
hey, Jake, got to go to meetings. You know what I mean? Because he was talking about joining your home group.
Oh, was he?
Yeah.
That would be so awesome.
Yeah, I know.
I just joined recently.
Yeah, I know.
Actually, and I love it, man.
Yeah.
I love it. And I've been committed to like opening that place up since I joined.
Yeah.
So it's making sure that I'm being more involved in my recovery, because like life shows up, kids and everything.
Absolutely.
And you can, those tired days where you're like, oh, it's like, no, I gotta go
I have
open
to
up.
do it.
I gotta open up.
Right.
And but no, I definitely want him on.
Yeah.
But I seen you first at the meeting.
I know. That's what I said. I was like, well, you'll have to go to a meeting for him to be able to ask you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, Jake?
Yeah.
Because he was Thursday. Well, he was gonna the week before he was talking about going, because we were both out there the week before, and then he was like, oh, maybe I'll make that with my home. I was like, you absolutely should do that. And then of course when he called me, he was like, I think I'm gonna go play pickleball. And I was like, oh yeah, no chance of going to the meeting, huh?
What is pickleball?
Oh, pickleball is where I busted up my leg 2.5 weeks ago, or a week and a half ago. I mean, it's really cool. It's kind of like tennis, but on a smaller scale.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
Okay.
It's a lot of fun.
Tennis on a smaller scale.
Yeah.
So it's not like backgammon? No, it's different.
No, but it's like with a little, like a wiffle ball, a super lightweight ball, and a paddle, but not like a mesh paddle, like a tennis paddle, like a solid
ping pong,
kind of like ping pong, kind of like tennis, and it's fun. It's really fun. I played with them. I've only played like 3 or 4 times, and I played with them 2 weeks ago when our house was in the middle of a remodel.
Yeah. You can't play sports with Jake. He's highly competitive.
Well, he was on my team, and so I was just running to get the ball, and my calf popped.
Oh, wow. Oh,
yeah. It's gnarly.
Yeah.
My leg has been jacked for like a week and a half. And apparently, pickleball is a good sport to get hurt in.
Oh, really? Oh, wow. Because you've been exercising and stuff a lot lately.
Yeah.
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 Been doing that deal for a little bit.
I've been doing it for almost 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see y'all on there. I'm like, damn, I gotta.
Yeah. Well, trying to stick with it, and then this happens, and then you're like, I mean, I thought that I was in really good, I mean, a lot better shape than what I was 2 years ago. And then how does this happen? But apparently it's just something with and literally movement. It was just running. But the coach at the gym was like, he said, there's something about that lateral move when you're going to get the ball to hit it. It happens often.
Interesting. Well, I don't want to go too far into that, considering this is a recovery podcast.
Right.
But I very much appreciated you coming on.
Yeah,
you did an
thanks for
amazing
having
job.
me.
My pleasure. And thank you very much.
Yes. Yeah.